I wanted to do a quick video on how to set up your valve train without having to go to somebody professional. It's kind of layman way of doing it, and you really don't need much in tools to do it. I happen to have some micrometers. You could also certainly use, unless you're doing a really high performance motor, if you're just setting them up stock or want to check it, you can use a set of vernier calipers to also check it. And I'll show you both ways. And they sell these really cheap on like eBay or Harbor Freight. And you can even get digital ones. Now, I have nice tools because my father was a machinist, or I probably wouldn't have these. These are just two different sets of verniers for checking, so you can check the distance and then use a micrometer and see where it's at. And again, you can also use the verniers if you don't have micrometers. So these are a set of shovel heads, late shovel heads, 80 cubic inch for my chopper. The one thing I do is anytime I'm checking, I keep everything together. So this is the rear cylinders, intake valve. So I keep everything together. The lower retainer says rear in. The springs were what came off of it, and then the upper retainer. I also have a video that shows the proper way to do valve seals and adjust valves, and you can check out my video. Please subscribe, hit like. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I definitely don't have enough followers to have to worry about not answering. I will certainly answer. So these were completely set up. They're ready to go. I had the guides checked. They had about 30,000 miles on them. Had the seats cut. You need a good guy for heads. It's John Cycles in Chester, Pennsylvania. So we're going to be looking at the intake, and this is the same for all of them, and I'll show you that. But it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing really complicated with checking these valve specs. It's just a little bit of math. So one of the things they always want you to check, or to double check, is install height. Now, if you're running a stock cam or really small bolt-in cam, you don't have to check this stuff, but it's good that you do. You should never fool around with, taking a chance, especially because it's just so easy to do. So again, I put a rag under there to hold the valve up, put the lower spring retainer in. You put the upper spring retainer in if I could get the keepers to stay. And there it is. So this is install height. A lot of times they tell you with springs that you buy, they want you to have a certain install height because it gives you a certain spring pressure. So what you basically do is you hold the upper retainer in, you hold the lower retainer flat, and then you dial these out until, and I have them set already because I don't want to take up a bunch of video time, but that's about, you go from where the valve sits, and I'll show you that a little better, until it's just like that. And now I can use a micrometer to check that distance, and that will be install height. The other way to do these is with a vernier caliper, and it simplifies it, and it'll be close, but it won't be perfect as the other way with the micrometer. But you just set it in from the top lip to the bottom. You kind of come out, and you get an install height of 420. 421 is the install height. Now, I already did these heads, and you can see 420 is probably close. This is the rear head, and I come up with 4.401 instead of 420. Now, I did this earlier, and I have my closed install height on the intake at 133. So all these were an inch. See, this is an inch. I came up an inch 420. So it's an inch 033, or sorry, 1 inch and then 330. So that's how you do install height. I know, you know, earlier I took my time and made sure these were pulled real tight. And the other thing is full collapse on the springs. You can check them by putting them in a vise and just bring them down. You don't want to go full coil bind, but shovel head springs are usually 0.9. You don't want to crush them to full coil bind, but I've crushed old ones. They were always 0.9. I took this down to like 920, and it wasn't quite all the way, but that's coil bind on those. So like I said, the install height is 1.330. And then the height on it, the spring loose, is 2 inches and 10 thousandths. So it's 2.0015 or 2.015 or so. Now, the next thing you have to do is you have to check your valve seal, right? So what I do on the valve seals is I measure from top to bottom, and I just do it with the vernier caliper. You know, you can really use anything, but I do it real easy. So that's 430, 0.430. And then I depth mic down to where it's going to sit, and that comes out to 2.270. So if you do 0.270 and then 0.430, you come up with 160, 0.160. So you know that from the top of the valve seal when it's installed to the bottom of the keeper, right? Here's the bottom of the keeper here, the lowest part, is going to be 0.160. So you want to check that, right? You want to check that from the guide. You want to check from the top of the guide to the bottom of the keeper is 7 point, we'll just call it 710, 0.710. And then this area from where it seats to the top of the seal is going to be 160, 0.160. So if you have 710 minus 160, you have 54.540, right? So you know you can put a 540 lift cam in there and it's just going to touch that. Now you don't want it that close because things, when they get hot, they expand. But my cam in this is just an Andrews or A grind, which they now kind of call the A2. It's a 450 lift cam. So I have plenty of clearance from the bottom of the upper spring retainer to the top of the valve seal at 540. I'm only going to be lifting 450. So I have more than enough clearance. Now, the other thing you want to do is when you have to have a spring pressure tester for the springs, but they want a certain install height with big cams. So the distance from the upper retainer to the lower retainer. Now I do want to show you that real quick. The upper retainer, lower retainer, and it sits down in this lip, right? There's a lip there. And same with the upper, it sits in the lip, right? So they want a certain height from here to here, which will give you a certain pressure they feel. Generally with shovel heads, you know, mild cam, 130 to 150 is, you know, where they want them. And then when they're completely cam open, so at 4, you know, you would set it at the install height, whatever that happens to be, and then add 0.450 to it, because that's the cam lift. You should see somewhere around, you know, 280, 300 pounds of pressure. And that's how you know if your springs are good. Now, to get the install height right, they put shims underneath this this lower spring retainer. So that's the basic math on this. You know, like I said, I did all this beforehand for each one of them. I checked mine. So rear intake, when I checked it, the seal height was 275. And then, and that 275 is from the lower retainer, to the top of the seal, right? That's how I did seal total height. And, you know, the math works out depending on which way you do it, multiple ways. So it was 275. The closed installed height was 1.330 from the top of the guide to the upper spring retainer. And that's the lower portion of that upper spring retainer, right? It's way here. It's here, not here when you're checking the clearance to your seal, right? So that was, so from the top of the guide, yeah, to the bottom of that was 0.7 I had. And then the seal thickness was 149. And this is on the intake, right? So if you take 0.7 minus 149, there's plenty of room for that cam. We came out with 540. I come out here with like 550. But the good thing is, once you kind of have these veneers set, when you want to go to the next spring, it's just a matter of taking it and doing a quick setup with the other valve, right? You just do a quick setup, and it's a lot faster now. Just take this stuff out. It's a lot faster because you already have the veneers set, right? You don't, so you can just kind of do a real quick check and go. You don't have to get so involved in getting set up. The setup time is really what takes all the time, right? So I do this, got it, everything looks good. Now I just get my veneers and I go in there, and if I know one's good, then the other one's got to be good, right? Now this one's a little tighter, and I do know why that is. I won't get into all the specifics, but so if I hold them down and do a quick check with my veneers, and then like I said, you can use, so veneer calipers say this is 1.378, 1 inch 378. Now again, if I take my veneers and I check them, I should be close. You know, I'm doing this pretty quick like this, but these are 1 inch micrometers. It's 1.357. So when I did this one earlier, I believe I came up with on the exhaust 1.4. So not sure exactly what the difference is, and I will recheck it, but this is what it is, you know. Again, I might have got them backwards, but yeah. So that's your check, but the main one out of all of them is certainly you'd always want to check from the top of the guide to the bottom of the upper spring retainer. Now this one says it is 690, and at 690, and we said the seal, we checked the seal, it was 149 or 150 we call it. So, you know, more than enough room there for a 450 lift cam. But when you get into your bigger cams, you definitely want to be checking it. You want to take your time and check it really quick. I just want to give you a flavor that this is pretty easy to do for valve setup with a veneer caliper, or if you have the right tools to check it. So hopefully this helps. Like I said, my cam is a 450 lift at the valve, and the spring fully collapsed is 0.9. So, you know, I did that, and it works out. So hopefully it helps. Like I said, please subscribe, like, ask some questions, and hope it helps.